Hi, everybody. Welcome to Taiwan Talk. I'm Alex Lewis. This week, we speak to Matt Bronsil and Sam Yarbs about stand-up comedy. Matt Bronsil was one of the earlier stand-up comics here in Taiwan, and Sam is a current stand-up comedian who doesn't perform here. He runs 2-3 Comedy Club here in Taipei, and he performs in Hong Kong, Singapore, Thailand, etc. We talked to them about stand-up comedy because the stand-up comedy scene here in Taiwan is growing. I myself am a big fan of stand-up comedy, and I think it's really interesting to see how it's being received here in Taiwan. So without further ado, here's my conversation with Matt and Sam. I'm here with Matt and Sam. Could you tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Okay. Well, my name is Matt Bronsil. I'm from America. I did some stand-up comedy in America before moving to Taiwan, and I moved to Taiwan in 2006 and have been enjoying performing since then.
Also, my name's Sam Yarbs. I live here in Taipei. I'm also from America. I run 2-3 Comedy, which is a group here in Taiwan that organizes open mics and shows. And I've been here in Taipei for about 1 year, previously in Kaohsiung, doing comedy around the island.
Okay, Sam, can you tell me a little bit about 2-3 Comedy, how you started that, how you started 2-3 Comedy, and what made you think it was what people wanted here?
Absolutely. Well, I've been living in Kaohsiung for about 3 years previously. My friend and I have been doing shows around the island, and we definitely felt that there was a great response from a lot of the expat community and the local Taiwanese community for stand-up comedy. So moving to Taipei, I wanted to – my goal was really to create a place where we had a consistent open mic, a weekly open mic, where new comics could come out and perform. People could come out and check out comedy for free. That's been one of the models that we do for our open mic, and it's been great. It's been fantastic in the year. We've had a lot of new comics coming up, and so it's been really exciting doing it here in Taipei.
Okay, so you started in Kaohsiung.
Yes, sir. We used to be K-hole comedy, but that doesn't work in Taipei.
Yeah, we're more subtle here.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 2-3. Yeah, 2-3 is nice. Yeah, it's nice. It's clean.
Okay.
We just didn't want to be like stinky tofu comedy. You know, like everywhere, you go around Asia, every place is like, it's like fried rice comedy or something like that, wonton soup comedy. It's like, no, I know we're in Asia, but come on, let's be professional. And something sorry just came to me. I'd be remiss if I hadn't said it before. I mentioned starting 2-3 Comedy. I should mention that I started it with a partner, a woman named Meg Anderson. She was with me starting 2-3. She was like really the driving force behind trying to like professionalize the open mics that we had, like really being like, you have to be there every week if you want to get on shows and things like that. She was fantastic for organizing. She was way better at all that stuff than me. Also a hilarious comic and probably the best improviser in Taiwan.
Exactly.
She's living in Bangkok now and is still involved in comedy. She just made the finals of the Magners International Comedy Festival, and the final heat in Bangkok. I heard she had a great set there. I'm excited to see her in July. So she's running shows, living in Bangkok, still heavily involved in improv, and I believe she's appearing in a play. So I just didn't want to. I realized I might have made 2-3 sound like my own thing, but she was here for the first 6 months of that, and so Meg Anderson was a huge part of the growth of comedy in Taipei that we've seen.
And do you think comedy is appreciated here, Matt?
I do, and I think it's changed a lot since I've come here. When I first came here, most of the comedy you would see in the clubs, it's still like this, I think, but a lot of it was just slapstick, kind of sketch comedy that's going on. And when I first came, there was not a lot of stand-up comedy, and it seems like the foreigners sort of brought that in because the Taiwanese didn't really recognize it as far as what it was. And now, even now, there's a lot more stand-up comedy coming from the Taiwanese side.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, the Chinese humor and the Taiwanese humor has a different background. They come from like it's called like the crosstalk shows. I don't know if you're familiar with that style, where it's like two performers on stage. It's very slapstick, over the top. You might see some of it today in the TV shows on Taiwan, where they have the sound effects off board, the slide whistles and things like that. And that was kind of the background. But what we had was all these Taiwanese kids, and I think one of the biggest things was Netflix and YouTube. Was these kids were watching all these specials and watching everyone. They know Louis C.K., they know Chris Rock, they know Dave Chappelle, and when they find out, wait, I can see that here in Taipei, they get excited by that, and so that started to kind of snowball. And for the last year, it's just been building, and it's great. Okay,
so Sam, you think just being able to access like comedy elsewhere, from the United States and stuff, you think that Taiwanese people have become more savvy to open mic or just stand-up comedy?
Absolutely. They get the idea of what of what stand-up comedy is, talk show. Just one guy on stage with a mic, or guy or girl, going up there, generating ideas, talking about current events or different topics and things like that. And they're informed already. They go to the show knowing what it's going to be. They understand the art form, if you will. Like, they understand it and they have a background from it. And the fact that they can see it live here, they're blown away by that. It's cool.
Matt, so you came before Netflix and YouTube and all that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Laid the groundwork.
I came in the MySpace days of comedy. So
Okay, so when you came, how did you find you had to adjust or teach them what stand-up comedy was? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I had done stand-up comedy in Cincinnati, my hometown, before. And I came here and I tried to do the same set that I had done in Cincinnati, and it just didn't work. None of the references were even caught or understood. So I had to sort of adjust and work my material into the life that I live now in Taiwan and make it relevant to what people understand here. So I started with, of course, my job of teaching English and, wrote about that. And then just kind of moved out into more cultural things, and especially, dating and marriage now and things along those lines.
And so how big was the circuit back then? Not just the circuit, maybe like the crowds and how many performers. What are we talking about in terms of size?
The audience it was at the old comedy club. The comedy club had moved a few times, but it was at the Fritz Comedy Club. And there may be about 50 or 60 people in the audience.
And what year is this, 2006?
2006, 2007. I moved here in 2006. But yeah, this is about 2006 or 2007. And the audience was really receptive to it. The group itself, there was one guy, Dan Mechanic, who had worked in America, and he'd moved back. There was Hartley Poole. He was from England, and he had incorporated a lot of sketch stuff into his work as well. And then there was another guy, Kurt, who ran some shows, and he had a lot of people that worked there. And a lot of the people who are still doing it are still around in Taiwan. So it's great to see them all the time. But a lot of the people that started have just moved away from doing the stand-up comedy.
And Sam, how's the scene now? Like, how many, how many clubs are there, and how's the audience?
There's quite a few venues. There's no dedicated comedy club. Actually, that's not true. I'm sorry. There is a place on Badalu that is called Comedy Base, but that one they're exclusively doing Mandarin stand-up, which is something I think we should talk about later because that's a really exciting development.
There
is
Chang's
place.
There is one in Taichung. Yeah, there is one dedicated comedy club in
the
Taichung.
Laugh House in Taichung. And we're going to be down there with Ed Hill in May coming in over, so that should be a really fun show. I think the biggest change has been kind of what kind of Matt touched on right there is that a lot of the people who first started it laid the groundwork for what we're doing now. They brought in the venues, they brought in the audience, they trained people and set people's expectations. But at the same time, a lot of people who started earlier were looking at it as a hobby.
Yes.
And absolutely, and that's kind of the transition we're making now. We're moving from the people who are hobbyists, and the people who I find most exciting are these young Taiwanese kids who dropped out of university because they want to do stand-up for a year. We've got people like that in our scene. I think those are the ones who are going to be the stand-up success stories down the road. These kids who are just they don't look at it as a hobby. This is what their dream. They're 19, 20, and this is what they want to do. So those kids are exciting. And so I think probably the biggest change has been in the last year is having consistent open mic, where we have an opportunity for comics to get on stage every single week and practice jokes. Every single week. If you're doing a weekend show, you can get on stage 8 to 10 times a month here. Whereas a year ago in Taipei, you might have been doing once a month, maybe twice on a good month or something like that with no open mics. So just the repetitions, the comfortableness in front of the crowd. It's still nothing compared to a place even like a Shanghai or Hong Kong where there's more opportunities for stage time. To say nothing of New York, where a hungry comic can get up 5 times a night or whatever. They can do the work of a month in a week over there. But it's the trajectory that you see. The opportunities for stage time, and these kids are taking advantage of it. They're out there every week grinding and writing new jokes and doing it. So that's awesome to see.
Yeah, we had stage time about once every 3 months, and it was the show. When I started. So it's really great to see that growth in that area.
Yeah.
So you just mentioned Shanghai and Hong Kong. How does Taipei or Taiwan stack up in terms of the comedy scene?
Well, we are smaller.
Very small.
We are
Yeah.
smaller. Yeah, regionally, that's one of the exciting things over the last few years as well, and I'm sure something that you've witnessed, Matt, over the time that you've been here, is the rise of stand-up regionally. If you look at places like in Shanghai, Kung Fu Comedy, in Hong Kong, Takeout Comedy, those are two like world-class comedy clubs that are right here in Asia, easily accessible. Singapore, Comedy Masala is an amazing room down in Singapore. The Philippines, obviously, is a huge English language scene. Malaysia, they have Crack House, Japan, South Korea. It goes on all these places. And what happens is you get some really quality talent who come through, and then it becomes this kind of like mini regional hub where if you're already in Shanghai, like why not pop over to Hong Kong? Why not go to Singapore? And so that was one of the goals with 2-3 Comedy, is to put Taipei on that map. To put them, why not do a weekend in Taipei? You're already over here. Add another country to your list and come and see and come and bring that. And then our comics grow from that, right? They see these guys who are touring, who are doing it full professional, and that's like the most exciting thing. They get to open for these guys. It's crazy. So that's kind of the goal. That's my goal for the next year, is to kind of move towards really establishing Taipei on the regional scene and growing, because right now we're not. Right now
we're still at the bottom.
We catch people if they got like an awkward layover for sure, whatever like that. But it's just not. We're not there in terms of the facilities and everything like that.
And we don't have them. I mean, we don't have the audience growth as like the other cities do. I mean, we don't have the draw to be able to have the money to bring in these top names quite as often as we would like to. Yeah. But we'll work on it.
On the Mandarin comedy side,
yeah.
Is that boosting as well? Is that like growing very fast?
Absolutely. At 2-3, we just started doing a Mandarin open mic. This every Thursday night at 9 p.m. The bar is called 23 Public. 2-3 Comedies at 23 Public. That should be pretty easy. And it's every Thursday 9 p.m. And that has been just jammed. It's been standing room only every night that we've done it so far. About 15 comics signed up all the time. There's also a Mandarin open mic over at Comedy Base. I think Socio runs his at 8 p.m. That's the Mandarin Comedy Club. So that's 2 open mics a week for Mandarin stand-up. And they have their own groups that run their shows, but we're hoping to start some 2-3 Mandarin shows in the near future as well. And I'd be remiss at this point if talking about the growth of Mandarin comedy without bringing up probably Taipei's and Taiwan's biggest success story as a comedian, a young man named Brian Sung. Brian Sung is a young man, grew up in Taipei, local here, and then I believe was educated in the U.S., went to school there, speaks fluent English and Mandarin. He had a video a while back that went pretty viral, got over like 3 million views, and his fan page now is blowing up. It's Stand Up Brian on Facebook. I mean, this kid's like at our shows, like there's a line to pose for selfies with this kid. Like he's really he's taken off. He's really doing it, and he's hilarious and super humble and works super hard. So that's a name to watch out for. And he's put that Mandarin scene kind of on his back and is really lifting it up.
And the comedy club in Taichung is also growing as well. I've got to throw that out there because it's not just Taipei. They've just started doing improv classes for people, which is different from stand-up, of course. But they're doing a lot of stand-up comedy as well down there. So it seems to be growing really well. And if I look at over the last 10 years, it seems like the last 2 or 3 years is when it really started to take off and hit.
Taichung Laugh House, May 24th, Ed Hill. Get your tickets on AccuPass. Yeah.
What kind of humor is most popular here? Because, I mean, there's humor for everybody. Is it clean? Is it a little bit more acerbic? What's the tone? Of course, I mean,
Yeah.
generally speaking.
I think people tend to prefer clean. I think they've seen a lot of the not clean stuff, and just it doesn't quite resonate as well, especially with the Taiwanese audience. That's just been my experience, at least. You could push it edges, get a little bit edgy with it, but they just don't respond as well to people getting up there and saying a whole bunch of cuss words or anything like that.
Definitely. And I think one thing, I mean, to connect with the audience, and this is true of any like regional area, anywhere you go, but you gotta have something that relates to the Taiwanese culture. You gotta talk about stuff that's unique to Taiwan, and you gotta be a little bit careful about that. People are really, this is a really proud country, man. People are really proud of Taiwan stuff, and I tell that to visiting comics, like, don't slag on Taiwan. Don't slag on the stuff here, and especially not the food. Don't say anything if you don't like the food. Just shut up. Don't talk about that, because they'll turn the audience against you like that, man. Yeah, they're proud, and if you can find a way to connect and have some observations about that, and being a foreigner obviously is a bit of a unique perspective. I think that that's always going to connect with the audience.
Okay, that still goes over well because I feel my next question was like, how do foreigners fare if they can't talk about like anything that's like problems within Taiwan, right? Like a foreigner can't talk about China and Taiwan and like what Taiwan should do and et cetera, et cetera.
I think you can. I mean, Taiwanese will appreciate political stuff as long as it's smart. I've noticed that.
Yeah.
They have no problem with, especially the Taiwan-China relations, because most of your audience is pretty much on the same side with that, I think.
Yeah.
So they really do appreciate someone who at least comes with it with an understanding of what the actual issue is. If it's just some foreigner just going, oh, this whole Taiwan-China thing is stupid, they won't really be interested in that.
Yeah.
But if it's someone who comes who attacks it smart and who has a very interesting way to look at things or say things, the Taiwanese people, I think, respond well to that.
Yeah, and if you can be self-deprecating, like if you can be self-deprecating at first about like going out like, oh, like my Chinese is so bad, blah blah blah, and put it on you, then the audience will give you leeway to come back and like at the same time like you guys do this and that's ridiculous, so they'll give you that leeway. But if you just come out and like start blasting Taiwan, then the audience is gonna be against you immediately. But if you can show that yeah, I'm the idiot, I'm the one who's wrong here, but at the same time like let's look at it this way, like I think the audience can be really receptive to that. They're definitely not like immune to like laughing at themselves. So
yeah. And I feel like it's kind of that's the same with anywhere, right? If you go and slag off any city or any country, they're not gonna like you.
Who's
Right?
this guy? Yeah.
Exactly.
Unless you're like a Bill Burr and you can just go up and do like 11-minute rant about how
in Pennsylvania.
that's the incident.
That was epic,
yeah.
dude.
Oh
yeah.
man, yeah.
That was good. Bill Burr, one of my favorites. I went to school in Boston, so.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah.
I grew up in Vermont, and I lived in Boston for 3 years.
Oh, excellent. No, I just went there for college, and I worked there for a little bit. I
Where
was
were you
there
at?
for
BU
8 years. I went to Northeastern.
Just won the Beanpot.
Yeah, we did.
That's the first time, right? For like a
Yeah.
a decade or something, right?
It's
like
been a while.
It's been a bit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so it was a big deal.
Congrats to you guys. On
Thank
that,
you,
man.
thank you,
That's
thank
a
you.
big one.
How'd you get started in comedy?
I started here in Taiwan actually. I was living in Kaohsiung, and a buddy of mine was starting an open mic night at a bar in Kaohsiung called Black Dog. Shout out to Black Dog in Kaohsiung. And I was unemployed at the time. I just arrived back in Taiwan. I was on my I was trying to find work, and my buddy was like, "Come out. I heard you like to tell jokes. Like, come on out and try it." And I went out, and I told him, I was like, "No, you know what, man? Like, I'm gonna show up for the first one and I'll watch." Because I'm too nervous to jump up the first time. I want to check it out. And he wrote me back this long text that was like, basically like, suck it up. He's like, everyone says that, and you're gonna feel just as scared the next week. They say they want to watch, and then you'll watch, and you'll be just as scared the next time we do it. Do it your first time. The audience will give you the benefit of the doubt. It'll be the best. I was like, okay. So I sucked it up and had this open mic night, and I gave it a try. And I think I did I thought I had 5 minutes. I think I did 2 minutes. I got one laugh the entire time, and I stepped off stage, and I was like, I'm never not doing this again. Well, first, I stepped on my story. First, I showed up, and I showed up at the bar for the open mic. I'm like, okay, cool. When am I on? He's like, you're on after me. I'm like, wow, I'm opening. He's like, no, you're the only other comic. It's just you and me. He was like, yeah, sign up for my open mic night. It was just the two of us going.
Yeah,
so I think he opened with like 10. I did my 2. He did 10 more minutes, and we're like, all right, someone play music. We're done. The comedy's done. Yeah. Let's wrap it up. But I was hooked from there, and so. He had a van that used to go down and take surfing. We go down, living in Kaohsiung, go down the East Coast and surf all the time. So we took out his surfboards and my buddy made us a stage. He had a wood shop in Kaohsiung, and we'd put the stage in the van, and we would just drive all around the island and we'd just go on Facebook and find, hey, someone from Taichung before I knew Matt, what's the best foreigner bar in Taichung? And we'd send them a message, hey, this is what we do. We'll do a show. Can you let us come in, tell some jokes? And that was how we did it for about a year.
And that was K-Hole?
That was K-Hole Comedy, yeah. K-Hole Comedy. My buddy's now in New York, Rob Stocky. He's basically living full-time at a comedy club, and he says he gets up 60 to 70 times a month, just living the dream, man, yeah. Wow. He says he's broke as hell, but he's loving it, man. He's loving it.
That's part of the dream.
That's part of the dream, man, yeah. He was grinding from day one, and so keep an eye out for Rob Stocky. He's hilarious, man. So,
Rob Stocky?
Yeah, Rob Stocky, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that, comedy is a grind. You have to really put the work in, and you have to take a lot of shit, right? And it's not just nobody laughed at my jokes. It's you really need a thick skin to, I guess, persevere and to get somewhere in this profession and stuff.
There's no worse feeling than stepping off the stage going, man, I just bombed that set. And actually, we had a show where I bombed. It was in Shinju. And I was downstairs, and I just kind of wanted to stay away from everyone. And Luke Giorgio, who's one of the other comedians who performed, he comes downstairs and he goes, "What the hell happened?" I was like, "Thank you." I was like, I actually needed someone to actually tell me that I did a bad job, because sometimes you walk off and people are like, "You did good," and it's like, no.
Yeah, audience is always nice, right? Like, oh,
Yeah.
like nice, like, yeah.
Thank you.
I bombed at this open mic. I was up first. I bombed at this open mic. I bombed so hard in front of a bunch of new people, and I was trying old stuff, and I didn't even get it. I was like, why this bombing? Why is this not working? And so I go out, but like I bombed before. I'm like, come on, Sam. Like you've evolved past this, all right? You're not gonna let this. I'm not gonna let this destroy my night, okay? Like I'm gonna go back. I'm gonna order a beer. And I'm gonna watch the other comics and see if I can like tag one of their jokes, like help them out, like with some new idea. I'm gonna make something up tonight. It's nice to be. So I gave myself this pep talk. I go back in. I'm at the bar waiting for my beer, and this girl walks up to me. And she goes, "Hey, like that was pretty good." And I was like, "Thanks. I thought it was a little rough, but like appreciate it." She's like, "So was that your first time?" And I was like, "All right, I need 3 more beers right now." Immediately the headspace just spirals off immediately. Oh
no.
God, nice.
That's rough.
Nights of waste.
So are the comics close in this in the Taiwan circuit?
For the most part, yeah. I think. Yeah. I mean, I know a lot of the people. I do a lot more improv, and the improv group is really close, and the stand-up group seems pretty close as well. I'm sort of out of that group a little bit more now that I do improv, but it seems like they've always been pretty close and knew each other and helped each other. And
definitely, yeah. I think I mean, we see each other almost every Monday night, at the shows on Saturday and stuff like that. We're talking to each other, we're helping each other out. People are pretty good about like trying to like, hey, you did that better last time, or hey, maybe this time you could try this. Give each other like little tags or try to improve. It's all about trying to. The best feeling, I think. You would think the best feeling is like when you kill, when you go up and you have a great set. But I think the best feeling is like at the end of a night when you're part of a great show, when everyone's killing from start to finish, and it's just like, and people are like, wow, like that was an awesome night, that was a great show. And so if you have that goal in mind, like it's not as team oriented as improv, and never will be, because improv you really rely on each other so much. But if we can have some of that sense of community about like if this is going to make the show better. Then you gotta like everyone chip in, everyone jump on, do that. And kids are great about that, man. Some of these guys, my comics will come out and run sound, even if they're not in the lineup. They'll come out and help, help upstairs at the bar, even when they're not doing jokes. And it's all volunteer and stuff like that. So it's a cool community, man. It's really good. And I encourage anyone who's interested in trying it out and seeing what's about, come out. Monday night, every Monday at 9:30 is open mic. It's free. You show up. There's a piece of paper at the front. You sign your name. You get 5 minutes. If you don't feel like doing 5, you can do 2, 3. It's fine. It's no worries. We'll tell everyone it's your first time, and come out and check it out. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. How big? How many comics are there?
At a typical open mic?
Yeah.
Recently, it's been just jam, man. It's been popping off recently. We had 17 at the last 2 open mics. Normally, we try to cap it at 15, but then throughout the course of the night, a couple of people are like, hey, I want to try this. So we'll cut after the first 12. We'll go down to 3-minute spots. My goal is we start late. It's 9:30, right? That's late. So we're down in Gongguan. I try to get everyone home by the MRT time. So we wrap it up by like 11:15. So we keep it tight. Comics going up and down. But about 17 comics or so. The shows will be less, obviously, because if you go to the show, that's curated, right? These are not expected to try new material. These are jokes that they've worked out and are there to perform specifically. So that might be like 6 or 7 people on a show. But the open mic, it's just whoever's there to show up. And so 15 to 17 comics. We've had about 20 to 30 audience at all these ones, so it's fun.
How many audience members are there?
At the open mics recently, it's been 20 to 30, man. But it definitely varies week to week and by the season too. We get killed in the summer, man. I'm so happy Game of Thrones is not on anymore. I'm so happy. Game of Thrones,
on Mondays.
It would come out, it would come out Sunday night. But of course, the English teachers are too late. Not waking up Monday morning to watch that. They're waiting to the end of the day Monday, and they're having these big viewing parties. And I'd be at the open mic. I'm like, there's 4 people here. I'm like, what's going on? Everyone's just
cursing Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones. It's like, and I'm missing Game of Thrones to host this. Like, it was double. I got hurt double there. So yeah, it definitely varies by the season, but it's been, the overall plot has been heading up, has been ticking upwards.
How about the shows? When do the shows happen? Is it like once a month or once a week?
Yeah, we try to do a monthly show. It's been consistent for the past year. It's called Craft Comedy. Craft is at a beer bar, so there you go. Occasionally, if we have someone who's capable of going up and doing a headline spot, we do a show called Spotlight Comedy. And then all that information about the shows specifically, you can check out the 2-3 Comedy page on Facebook. But yeah, normally there's at least one monthly show at that venue, the 23 Public, the beer bar in Gongguan.
Okay.
And then our next really big show. Really excited. This comic named Ed Hill. Ed Hill was born in Taipei, Taiwanese comic. He lives in Vancouver. He's a headliner there now, and he's coming in and he's doing a series of shows from Thursday through Sunday. Friday night he'll be in Taichung at the Laugh House on May 24th, and May 25th at Ulumulu out west in Ximen. We're going to have him there, and we'll be selling tickets on 2-3 through AccuPass there.
Okay. How many spots around Taiwan, I guess in Taiwan, like host comedy shows, you know?
Oh.
Because you just mentioned like Woo Woo Out West. This restaurant, I had no idea that they would host a comedy show, you know. So.
Well, they have a really big capacity there. So when we have, like, last year, a comic named Jason Chaney, also Taiwanese comedian, came over, we were able to sell about, like, 150 tickets for him. They have a big space where we wouldn't be able to do that in our normal venue. Our normal bar venue is much smaller, right? So, in Taipei, there's probably 4 to 5 different locations that have consistently hosted shows at different times. Yeah.
And in Taichung, I could think of 2. There's the Frog Restaurant, and then the comedy club down there. Hsinchu has 1 at Mary Cafe.
Yeah, most of the other cities in Taiwan have about one place that's consistently like hosted the shows. And that's all across. We've done shows in Dolio, Zhongli. We've done shows in Jiayi, Tainan, Kaohsiung, Taidong.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yo, yeah.
Dolio,
Traveling.
got that East Coast show.
Yeah, man. Dang.
Shout out to Sugar Factory, Highway 11 Brewing. Yeah.
Right. Hidden everywhere. Either you guys performed overseas or like outside of Taiwan, not from like, you know, from your hometown or something?
We've both done Hong Kong. I did improv in Hong Kong, and then you were at the comedy festival, weren't you?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough the last 2 years. I was a finalist in the Hong Kong International Comedy Festival, and this year...
What is that?
That's probably the largest regional comedy festival. So 30 comics come in. You have 10 comics each for 3 nights as judges, and they vote the top 3 from each night. And those top 3 all go back. The final 9 compete a week later for... there's a cash prize for the top 3. So I've made the finals the last 2 years, outside of the top 3, both of those years. But first 3 in my prelim nights, and then I was finalist in a Shanghai Comedy Festival as well, and the Bangkok International Comedy Festival. So those are similar things. About 30 comics going on to the finals there. And Takeout Comedy in Hong Kong brought me back to do a headline spot in February. So I just headlined Takeout Comedy, and just this July I'm headlining Comedy Masala in Singapore. So those are my first 2. Like personal, like international headlining gigs.
I've done the improv festival in Hong Kong at Takeout Comedy as well. So that's my only experience outside of Taiwan or America where I've performed.
Let's talk about headlining. What does that entail, being a headliner?
Well, headlining so the headliner is the last comic to go up of the night, and is generally expected to do a larger chunk of material. For the regional headlining shows, 25 minutes seems to be the minimum, but it can go anywhere up to 25 minutes to an hour, depending on the venue and how much time they want you to do. And if you're headlining regionally, the expectation is that you're being paid to go in. Like whether they're covering airfare or just a per diem or something like that. So it's whereas if you go. A year ago, I was going to Singapore and doing feature spots, which would be like a 15-minute spot before the headliner, or opening, doing like a 7 or 8-minute spot before. Those would be like more like pop in. They might toss you a few bucks the day of, but like no one's covering your transportation or anything like that. You're expected to just, hey, it's good if you're here, you can jump on and do that. So headlining is kind of like the goal, the next step where you actually at least not losing money, if not making money, at least you're getting your expenses covered and your transportation covered. So
knock on wood.
Breaking even in comedy in Asia is making it.
Totally. Yeah,
that means you're golden if you're breaking even.
And how long did it take you to get to that point?
About 2.5 years. Yeah, my first exposure doing international was the first time I did the Hong Kong festival, and I went there. I had never performed abroad, and those times you have a 7-minute set, so there's 10 comics. And my only goal was just to go in there and not be obviously the worst. That was my only goal, because it was the first time a comic from Taiwan had done this festival, and I didn't know what to expect from these guys. Like I'd seen some of them on YouTube. They're really, really funny. I went out. I had probably my best set to date at that point. I finished 3rd in my prelim, which is skin of your teeth making the finals. Just the last one through the door. So I couldn't have been more excited. I was amazed that I got to go back, and then I got to fly back and do the finals, which is the first time performing in a theater, a much larger audience than I'd ever done before. So it was just a fantastic experience. But that introduced me to a lot of the other people who were hosting shows regionally, because they were all at that festival. So I met the guys from Shanghai, the guys from Thailand, and then started applying to their festivals. And when I was there, being asked to do feature spots, and then finally having gone back to Hong Kong again and made the finals 2 years in a row was when I started to get offers to headline.
Okay, yeah. So you just got to work your way up. Just got to
Yeah,
grind.
just make connections, meet the right people, and hopefully do well.
It's not an easy process anywhere. I mean, people watch Chris Rock or they watch Jeff Dunham or whoever's big in comedy, and they just think it's like, oh, you just get up there and you do this thing, and it just kind of happens. It's nights of just so much work. There's a lot of writing involved. There's a lot of editing involved. Excuse me, and you get down to where you're like, I have this funny idea, but I just can't make it work. Do I keep it and fix it? Do I drop it? And do I try something else? And it's the amount of work that goes into stand-up comedy is insane compared to what people think it is.
Let's talk about improv now. So Matt, you are heavier in the improv scene nowadays.
Yes.
Could you talk a little bit about the improv scene?
Yeah, when I first came here, I started doing the stand-up shows, and I found an ad on forumosa.com saying, just with one of the posts.
The
about,
MySpace of Taiwan.
Yeah, the MySpace of Taiwan. Exactly. We can't get sued for saying that, can we? But there was a improv practice going on, and I thought, well, I do stand-up comedy. I could definitely do improv. I could have this uppity attitude about it at first. And I went there, and it was in Taichung, and it was just way up in the hills. The taxi driver got lost. He had to keep driving back and forth up this dirt road until we finally found the place. And it was in this barn, and I managed to make it for the last half hour of practice. And I absolutely loved it, and we kept going back. And so the group of us, we decided to start an improv group and perform, and we called it, right before our first show, we're like, what do we call ourselves? And we finally we're like, let's call ourselves Taichung Improv. Like, so unoriginal, but that's what we were. So Taichung Improv ran for many years as an improv group, and we started doing what we call short form improv, which is we'll go up on, we'll kind of have these games that we do, like maybe the audience wrote down sentences and we have to pick the sentence up and read it, or maybe we can only talk in questions, or there's some gimmick to the game, and we'll ask the audience for a suggestion. Then we'll take that suggestion and make like a 3 to 5 minute scene about it, and then we move on to the next one and the next one and the next one. Then we started to do long form improv, which is we'll get a suggestion and then we have to make a 30-minute play off of that one suggestion. So that went on for a while. The Taichung Improv group just sort of split into two groups, and then now I work with a group called Skits and Giggles, and we've just started about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, doing shows down in Taichung, and it still has some of the Taichung Improv people, but it has a whole new, fresh group of people as well that got into it right when we started, so that they sort of started from the ground up and built their way up. The hard part with improv in Taiwan is with stand-up, if one of the stand-up comedians leaves, you've still kind of got your set, and you still kind of have your, you're doing your thing.
Next man up, yeah.
Yeah, when like
or woman, sorry.
Yeah, when people leave an improv, suddenly your whole group dynamic has changed, and we've had times where we've had a successful run of 2 years with the same core group, and then like all of that group just leaves, and then we're just left with like 2 people from the group, and just having to build that up again.
Yeah.
So how big is the improv scene here, though? How many like groups are here? And
there was a group down in Kaohsiung a while ago, but they seem to not be around anymore. Republic of Comedy. There was a
Republic of Comedy too?
Well, there was a stand-up group called Republic of Comedy also, so it got confusing for a while.
Yeah, that's a headache.
Yeah, but there was that group. Taichung Improv has been around since 2008, probably. It's going in about 10 years now, and so like in the peak of our season, we'll do like a show a month. We've drawn as many as like 150 or 200 people into a bar for a show. So the crowds are fantastic. The scenes as far as like who's performing, I think that's mostly in Taichung. I don't think the Taipei group does much anymore.
No, since Meg left, the Taipei Improv has been a lot slower. Though there is a woman here named Rowena Rowena Lair. I might be mangling her last name, and she's starting up a new improv group. I believe they practice on Wednesdays at Red Room. They might have moved that around, but if you look up Taipei Improv on Facebook, if you're interested in doing some improv, there is a little group, and they're trying to get going. And we're looking to do some of the most fun shows that we've done in the last year. At Laugh House have been these stand-up improv mashup shows.
Those are a lot of fun.
Yeah, these improv guys are wild, man. I can't do that. I need my jokes written down. I need to know what I'm saying. I go in there, and so what we'll do is we'll do like a set for like 15 minutes of stand-up, and then they'll take like our set and they'll do like an improvised play, basically based off of it, incorporate. And the way they like manage to hit and incorporate our jokes is it's incredible, man. What they can do just off the top. And those shows are super fun. Those shows have been a lot of fun. We've had a lot of success, and I'd love to get that going in Taipei as well, and have that be something that you could see up here.
I'll come up for that.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man. We gotta do it.
Yeah, but I think like the theme that I'm hearing is just like you guys, this passion.
Yeah.
That you guys have for it, just
it's
moving it along.
It's cost me a lot of money. My wife is not happy about that, but it's cost me a lot of money to do this, and I mean, but it's been worth it. It's like anything else you love doing, and sometimes, the shows, if you save the money up, it kind of pays for itself. But between we used to do posters and flyers and stuff like that, the money just goes into so much other stuff that you don't even think about, that eventually you just kind of go, all right, there's nothing left. Let's just keep going, though.
Yeah. It's all about. I mean, it's all about putting on a good show and building the scene and being entertaining. Like I came along obviously after Matt had been here, so like kind of what 2-3 is definitely like a little bit of a different generation, but it's not my generation that's going to be doing it. It's the kids, like I said, it's the Taiwanese kids who are like 19 and 20 now, who like grew up watching, Chappelle show.
Chappelle's the best.
And and like watching his clips on YouTube with the Chinese subtitles. And then they wait, I can do this here in Taipei, and now they're like, their energy and their passion, they're going to be the ones who like eventually break through and put Taipei on the map.
And they're dropping out of college, dropping out of high school to do this full time.
Let me be clear, I didn't recommend that to any of these kids. Right?
yeah. Whoever's listening, don't do that.
Don't do that. Don't do that. But yeah, I know of at least one of our performers who like took some time off from school specifically because he wanted to focus on getting better as a stand-up and doing it, and he's out there grinding every night, so it's fun. Yeah.
And do you think that's a viable profession now that it's like progressed so much here?
Brian Sung's making a living off it, man. That kid is like, I mean, if you can get your videos to go viral like that kid, he's been so good about it, man. He's so smart. He's kept so humble about all the attention he's got, and he's there's a great story from him. So he did this joke it was in Mandarin about how when you go to the tea shop, the only sizes they have is large and medium, right? And he's like, that's like, it's not if you don't have a small, that's not medium, that's your small size. And he had this like line. It was like, I guess that's why you have to work at a tea shop, blah, blah, blah. A little bit mean, a little bit of a dig, right? And it's probably funnier in Chinese too. I'm stepping on it right now. But like,
you can't tell other people's jokes. It never works.
But basically, like he got this backlash. All these people are like, you shouldn't say that about people. Like that's really rude. Like taking a tea. And he came out and he was like, you know what? You're absolutely right. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to go work at a tea shop for a day. And so Mr. Wish in Taichung brought him in for a day. And he was like, if you come up to me and if you insult me to my face, if you make me feel bad, I will buy you a free tea that day. And so he brings a video camera down. He films the whole thing. He works there. And, of course, the tea shop immediately gives him, like, 30 orders that he can't keep up with. Just be like, oh, yeah, not so easy now, is it, huh? Just, like, ragging on him. And he got this great content out of it. And he, like, apologized and was like – and he just – that's an example of just how he's handled the attention so well. I think he's been so smart with it. So
it's very savvy.
Yeah, he's very, very sharp. And he's, like – and he's legit just a really, really good kid. Yeah, so it's great to see someone like that making it in the scene. You're like, that's an awesome model to follow, man. If you can do what Brian's doing, like, good on you, man. Good on you.
Okay. But if you're getting into it to become famous, don't.
Yeah.
You have to get into it because you love it, and then because you love it, you become famous. And that's not advice from me who's famous. That's advice from all my friends that I know who are in it and are famous. It's, because you're going to feel terrible when you bomb, you're going to feel, horrible when you bomb, and then you just got to get back up there and do it again. And you have to do it again just because you love it.
Yeah, come on a Monday night in July during Game of Thrones season, and then if you still love it after that, then maybe it's for you. Maybe
still get a rush.
You still get that rush in front of like 3 people checking their phones. Then
trying to figure out what you said on Google Translate.
Yeah, looking at it like, I thought this was the Chinese one. Oh, goddamn, yeah.
One of my first shows in Taiwan was like that. I had I'd gone up to do a show. I lived in Changhua. I took the train up to Taipei. The train was an hour and a half late, and it was just an open mic in a bar. And I got there, and basically everyone had left except for a bunch of Taiwanese people sitting around drinking beer that just came to drink beer. They weren't there for a show. They spoke no English, and I had to get up and do this comedy show. And I was really doing it just so I could get onto other shows because the person who was booking for other shows was there. And thank God I'm a ventriloquist because I have a puppet dog. I started telling my jokes. The guy who was booking the show was laughing, but then the audience was just kind of looking at me like, why is this guy talking to the microphone?
What's going on? Yeah.
So I just kind of jumped down there with the dog and just kind of messed around with the people, and they all enjoyed that. And I was like, all right, good. I'm going somewhere with this finally. But
What's the worst show you've done? Would that be up there?
The absolute positive. I'll give you two of the worst shows I've done. The first one was the first one I've ever done as far as a stand-up comedian, because I got into ventriloquism because I teach children and I wanted to work with them. So I was working. I was living in Cincinnati, and a friend of a friend. I was at his apartment, this friend of a friend's apartment, and he has this really nice apartment. He said, yeah, my dad, who's this regional manager for some pharmacy, I forget which one, but he's holding a Christmas party here. And I'm like, oh, I'm a ventriloquist. I should come by and do something. It's like, all right. Well, I couldn't just bring my kids' material. So I wrote a bunch of stuff and just tried it out on stage. And it was just absolutely, positively the most embarrassing experience of my life. And I go out to my car and I'm feeling bad, and I call my girlfriend at the time, who we were already not getting along very well, but she's like, man, I just had the worst show. And that's when she decided to break up with me. So I said, all right. That's why I was like, all right, I've got to actually learn how to do this stand-up comedy. So I took a comedy class. But the worst show...
I don't think I'm funny. Yeah, you're also not in a relationship.
The worst show I ever had. She must have gotten a tape of it really quickly or something.
Just heard,
yeah.
Word travels fast.
You
it was on MySpace.
You gotta break up with this guy. You see it? You see that?
You see him? Yeah.
You see that stuff?
You don't want to be with that. Yeah. That's rough. Yeah.
The worst actual show I ever did was at the Taipei Comedy Club, and I was emceeing. And there was a group of drunk South Africans. It was at table 9. It was kind of a running joke with the comedians. But they were just yelling over everyone's set and just almost even starting arguments with the other people in the bar. And I was the MC, and I was trying to get this under control.
This was in Taiwan.
This was in Taiwan.
Does that happen often?
No.
People just ruining your set, or just being rude like that?
I mean, I'll get hecklers sometimes, but the hecklers tend to be more good-natured. They're just shouting out something fun. These guys were kind of, I think they were drunk and they were just out to ruin kind of the show, or have their own good time. Yeah. So I finally, everyone in the audience is asking me to, kind of put a stop to this. So I try my normal stuff that I do. And then I look at the owner of the club. I'm like, I'm sorry, these guys have got to go. Mm-hmm. And he's just like everyone sort of now back in America, if you're on stage and you're like, sorry, you got to go, then the security comes. It didn't happen in Taiwan. Just everyone kind of stopped and looked around. And it's like, oh, here's this guy on stage throwing out this table now. Yeah. And I just looked like a dumb idiot who couldn't control anything. But that's even worse when you have a puppet with you. Because, if you're funny with a puppet, it's great. If you're not funny and you're just a guy up on stage holding a puppet and you're not funny, it's absolutely terrible.
I never thought about that. Yeah, bombing with a puppet.
Yeah.
It's like, come on, man.
Yeah.
Bring
Say
it up,
something funny.
Can I tell you my worst gig?
Yeah,
real
please.
quick one? So we were brought in, a couple of our local comics here were brought in by the British Chamber of Commerce to go do a show at their annual budget meeting.
That's always a fun place for a show.
Just a natural venue for comedy. So we go in there and we see the itinerary, and we are at the end of the proceedings. So it's literally a hour-and-a-half presentation of their budget and charity proceedings. So, great update on, our donations to the Aboriginal group over in Taidong, and, this is great, and our budget here, and, they're cracking little jokes, budget jokes during their meeting, but, and they're always like, oh, well, we'll save the jokes, we have some professionals coming up later, so I don't want to... Meanwhile, there's an open bar in the back, but, no one's going because they're all, they're British, they're all watching the budget meeting, they're all... Yeah. And so no one's had any drinks or anything like that, and the caterers have come in and set up the food all around. And now it's 8 p.m. and no one's eating dinner. And there's a roast beef carving station, and you can just smell the roast beef, and all the food is there. But like, no one can eat until after the comedy, So we're at the end of this hour-and-a-half budget meeting, and they're like, "All right, guys, well now we're gonna introduce our comedians for the night." And they come up, and so we send out one after the other, and it just becomes so obvious after 5 minutes that none of these comics have ever done a show outside of a bar, because we're all just doing stuff like, you when you're with a girl, and she's like, and it's like 50-year-old British guys are like, "No, we don't, no,
we've forgotten.
We have no idea what you're talking." It's just 15 minutes of people just visibly staring at food, like waiting to eat, and then we had to stick around afterwards and like hang out, and like we had one little stand-up table, and they avoided it like we had like the plague. It's just like, it was just the most awkward feeling, and I felt bad for the gentleman who brought us in, because it was not our crowd, and we definitely did not adjust the material properly to do that. But yeah, we might have lost all future opportunities with the British Chamber of Commerce. So.
No wonder they haven't returned my calls.
Yeah, that's it, man. Yeah, maybe ventriloquy is more up their alley. I don't know. I was trying crowd, but nothing was working. Nothing was working.
Man, that sounds pretty rough.
It was
dude.
brutal. That was
yeah.
a bad one. Yeah, like when your set is so bad that it might like affect diplomatic relations. That's a bad set. That's a bad show. That's a bad one.
Yeah, man. Thank you to Matt Bronsil and Sam Yarbs for coming on to the show. They covered a lot of upcoming events during our discussion, so here they are again for your ease of listening.
Big one. Check out the 2-3 Comedy Facebook page. We got 2 big shows coming up. Friday, May 24th in Taichung, we have Ed Hill live. And then Saturday at Ulumulu Out West here in Taipei, Ed Hill, headline comedian from Vancouver, originally born in Taiwan. Definitely the funniest show you'll see this year. So check that out. Tickets are going to be available for pre-sale through our website, 2-3 Comedy Facebook page.
For me, I encourage you to check out Skits and Giggles Improv. It's an improv group in Taichung, and we have open practices regularly. Just come on out and enjoy yourself. You don't even have to perform. Just come on out and try it out. Also, there's a new stand-up comedy video that's out online about the history of the beginning of stand-up comedy in Taiwan. So if you check out on Facebook, check out Standing Up in Taiwan, and you'll be able to see the video there.
That was this week's Taiwan Talk. Thank you for listening. I'm Alex Lewis.